I'll take care of this one.
Hello, Hot Pants. I don't suppose you have a driver's license tucked down in there somewhere, do you?
Maybe you would like to complete your ensemble.
Oh, no. There's something else of yours that I want.
Oh, really? What's that?
Your ass!
What if someone told you that one of the wildest movies ever made wasn't actually made by Hollywood at all? What if the craziest car chase movie in history was really just a bunch of famous actors having the time of their lives, breaking rules and making it up as they went along? Well, get ready to have your mind blown, because that's exactly what happened with the Cannonball Run in 1981. This wasn't your typical movie production. This was pure madness on wheels. And today we're going to dive into 20 incredible facts that will change everything you thought you knew about this legendary film. From real illegal street races to drunk actors improvising scenes, from federal investigations to life-changing accidents. This story has it all. So buckle up, because we're about to take you on a wild ride through Hollywood history that's more unbelievable than anything you've ever seen on screen. Real race that started it all. Before we talk about the movie, we need to go back to where it all began. In 1971, something incredible happened that most people don't even know about. A guy named Brock Yates, who was a car magazine writer, teamed up with a famous race car driver named Dan Gurney. These two guys had a crazy idea that would change everything. They decided to drive across the entire United States as fast as humanly possible, with no rules, no permits, and definitely no speed limits. They jumped into a souped-up Dodge van and raced from New York all the way to Los Angeles in just 35 hours and 54 minutes. Can you imagine driving for almost 36 hours straight? Most people can barely stay awake for a regular road trip, but these guys were flying across America like their lives depended on it. But here's the thing that makes this story even more amazing. This wasn't just some crazy stunt for attention. Brock Yates created this race as a way to protest against the government. He was angry about speed limits and safety rules that he thought were unfair to drivers. So he basically gave a giant middle finger to the system by proving that people could drive fast and still make it across the country safely. He called this race the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash. It was named after a guy called Irwin Cannonball Baker, who had driven across the country more than 140 times, way back in the early 1900s. By 1979, 5 of these illegal races had happened, and people were using everything you can imagine. Ferraris, motorcycles, ambulances, and even hearses were racing across America. Some drivers wore disguises, others carried fake police badges, and all of them were willing to risk going to jail just to shave a few minutes off their time. When the writer became part of his own story, now here's where things get really interesting. Brock Yates wasn't done after creating this incredible race. He decided to team up with a stuntman and director named Hal Needham to write a movie script about the whole thing. But instead of just writing about it, Yates actually put himself in the movie. You can see him in the Cannonball Run playing a race official at the starting line, wearing sunglasses and holding a clipboard like he's running the whole show. But the most amazing part is that Yates brought the exact same Dodge ambulance that he had used in the real 1971 race. During that race, his wife was lying in the back pretending to be a patient, and they had fake medical crew members in the front. Their plan was simple but brilliant. Who's going to pull over a speeding ambulance? It mostly worked too, until the engine broke down near Palm Springs, and their race ended with the ambulance being towed on a flatbed truck. Years later, they cleaned up that same ambulance and used it as Burt Reynolds' vehicle in the movie. So when you watch the Cannonball Run, you're not just seeing a movie prop. You're seeing a real piece of history, a vehicle that actually raced illegally across America and somehow made it onto the big screen. Burt Reynolds and the decision he regretted. In 1980, Burt Reynolds was probably the biggest movie star in the world. He had just finished making Smokey and the Bandit, which was a huge hit, and everyone wanted to work with him. He could have chosen any movie he wanted, so why did he agree to do another car movie? The answer is both simple and complicated. His friend Hal Needham asked him to do it, and they offered him a massive amount of money. Reynolds figured it would be easy and fun, so why not? But here's the thing that makes this story so interesting. Reynolds later said that doing the Cannonball Run was one of the worst decisions he ever made as an actor. He admitted that he only agreed to do the movie because he wanted to hang out with his friends and have a good time. He didn't care about the script. He barely rehearsed his lines, and he didn't even bother watching the daily footage to see how his scenes were turning out. The entire movie felt like a vacation where someone happened to be filming. But then he saw the finished movie and absolutely hated it. He thought it was terrible, and was embarrassed that he had been part of it. The funny thing is, audiences loved it. Just like the real Cannonball race, sometimes chaos wins even when you're not proud of what happened. Reynolds learned that sometimes the craziest projects turn out to be the most successful, even if you're not expecting it. Farrah Fawcett's confusion. One of the most famous actresses in the movie was Farrah Fawcett, who was incredibly popular at the time. But she had absolutely no idea what kind of movie she was making. When she read the script and talked to the directors, she thought she was going to be in a serious action movie with some romantic scenes mixed in. She spent time studying her lines, thinking about her character's motivation, and even planning her outfits based on what she thought would be the emotional tone of different scenes. She was taking everything very seriously and preparing like it was going to be an important dramatic role. Then she showed up on set and saw Dean Martin stumbling around dressed as a priest, already half drunk and making jokes about communion wine. That's when she realized she wasn't in the movie she thought she was making. She later said she didn't figure out it was supposed to be a comedy until she watched it in a movie theater with a real audience who were laughing hysterically during scenes that she had played completely seriously. In a weird way, her confusion actually made her performance better. While everyone else was trying to be funny, she was playing everything straight and honest, which created a perfect contrast. Sometimes the best comedy comes from having one person who doesn't realize they're in a comedy. The real ambulance. That fooled everyone. That big Dodge ambulance that Burt Reynolds drives in the movie. It wasn't a fake movie prop that someone built for the film. It was the real deal. The exact same vehicle that Brock Yates and Hal Needham had actually used in the 1979 Cannonball race. During the real race, they had disguised themselves as an emergency medical team and put a fake patient in the back of the ambulance. Their plan was genius. Speed across state lines without getting pulled over, because who stops an ambulance that might be rushing someone to the hospital? It worked perfectly until the engine completely died outside of Palm Springs, ending their race with the ambulance being loaded onto a tow truck. Years later, when they were making the movie, they brought that same beat-up ambulance to the set, cleaned it up, and gave it a second chance at fame as Reynolds' ride in the film. It might have looked like a silly joke on screen, but underneath all that movie makeup was a genuine outlaw vehicle that had actually tried to race across America illegally. This perfectly shows what made the Cannonball run so special. Even the props had real stories behind them. Nothing was fake. Nothing was just for show. Everything in the movie had actually lived through the crazy adventure they were trying to recreate. The casting mix-up that created magic. Sammy Davis Jr. gave one of the most memorable performances in the movie as a trash-talking priest with a serious gambling problem, but he almost never got the chance to play that role. Originally, the character of Father Fenderbaum was written specifically for comedian Don Rickles, who was famous for making fun of people in a really clever way that would have been perfect for the movie's wild tone. Rickles was excited about the role. He accepted the job. Everything was set up and ready to go. Then, for reasons that nobody really understands even today, he suddenly backed out at the very last minute. Some people think it was because of scheduling conflicts. Others think he had creative disagreements with the director. Whatever the reason, he was gone, and the producers were scrambling to find someone else. That's when Sammy Davis Jr. stepped in and completely made the role his own. He brought this incredible mix of coolness, energy, and religious humor that nobody could have predicted. When you put him together with Dean Martin's wine-soaked one-liners, they created comedy gold that wouldn't have existed if the original casting had worked out. Sometimes the best things happen when your first plan falls apart. If Rickles had stayed in the movie, we would never have gotten to see the amazing chemistry between Sammy and Dean that made their scenes so special. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.'s real-life party. Speaking of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., those priest costumes and the drinks in their hands weren't always just props. These two legends spent most of their time on set either tipsy or completely drunk, and director Hal Needham decided to just roll with it instead of fighting it. They would show up late to filming, forget their lines, and end up improvising entire scenes while the cameras were rolling. In any other movie, this would have been a disaster, but Needham was smart enough to realize that watching the real Rat Pack be themselves was more entertaining than any script anyone could write. There's one story about Sammy slurring a prayer so badly during a take that they had to completely re-record his voice later in a sound studio. Dean Martin just laughed and poured himself another drink. They weren't really acting anymore. They were just being Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., having a party that happened to be filmed. In a movie where chaos was the rule, these two fit in perfectly. Their real-life friendship and their reputation for living life to the fullest became part of the movie itself. Sometimes the best performances happen when actors stop trying to perform and just let their real personalities shine through. Roger Moore's last laugh as James Bond. Roger Moore didn't technically play James Bond in the Cannonball run, but he played a character who thought he was James Bond. His character, Seymour Goldfarb Jr., drives an Aston Martin, wears a fancy tuxedo, quotes spy movie lines, and introduces himself exactly like you'd expect James Bond to do. Brilliant parody that let Moore make fun of the character that had made him famous. But here's the crazy part. It almost didn't happen because the real James Bond movie producers were absolutely furious about it. They couldn't legally stop the movie from being made, but they were so angry that they made sure future James Bond actors would never be allowed to make fun of the character in other films. So the Cannonball run ended up being the very last time that a real James Bond actor was allowed to play the character for laughs. Moore loved every second of it because he got to show a different side of himself and prove that he had a great sense of humor about the role that had defined his career. In a movie where everyone was playing some kind of fake character or wearing a costume, it was perfect that even James Bond wasn't safe from being turned into a joke. The accident that changed Hollywood forever. Not everything that happened during the making of the Cannonball run was funny or exciting. During a scene that involved an Aston Martin and a staged car crash, something went terribly wrong that would affect how movies were made for years to come. A stuntwoman named Heidi Von Beltz was riding as a passenger in the car during the scene. The seatbelt hadn't been properly installed, and when the car crashed into a truck as planned, she was thrown around inside the vehicle and suffered injuries that left her permanently paralyzed. The accident sparked a wave of lawsuits and created outrage throughout the stunt industry. Her case became a landmark moment in Hollywood history because it led to major changes in how stunts were planned and performed. From that point forward, the Directors Guild made new rules that prohibited changing stunt plans once filming had started, and seatbelt requirements became mandatory in all stunt vehicles. While the movie kept filming and audiences kept laughing, behind the scenes, the Cannonball run had left a permanent scar that would shape how movies were made for decades. It's a reminder that even in the middle of all the fun and craziness, real people were taking real risks to create the entertainment we love. Jackie Chan's American introduction. Jackie Chan only had a few small scenes in the Cannonball run, but he treated every moment like it was an audition for bigger things to come. He was doing incredible martial arts moves, flipping off walls, diving through windows, and throwing punches with the kind of precision and speed that left everyone on set amazed. Some of his best action sequences didn't even make it into the final version of the movie. Not because they were bad, but because they were too intense and impressive for what was supposed to be a silly comedy. American movie censors didn't know what to do with a martial artist who moved like a blur in the middle of a car chase movie. Jackie was disappointed that his best work got cut out. But those few scenes that did make it into the movie introduced him to American audiences for the first time. It planted a seed that would eventually grow into his incredible Hollywood career. He went from stealing scenes to stealing entire movies. But it all started with the Cannonball run, giving him his first chance to show American audiences what he could do. The script that didn't exist. A movie this wild and unpredictable couldn't possibly follow a normal, finished script. And it didn't. Scenes were completely rewritten while actors were sitting in their trailers. Dialogue was made up on the spot. And some actors showed up to work without having any idea what they were supposed to film that day. Hal Needham directed the movie like it was a live stunt show instead of a traditional film. Everything was fast, loose, and half improvised. Farrah Fawcett later said she never actually saw a complete script for the entire movie. Dom DeLuise admitted that he made up about half of his lines while the cameras were rolling. Dean Martin just said whatever came into his head and hoped it would be funny. There was no safety net, no detailed plan, no structure at all. It was just one take after another until something made the crew laugh hard enough to decide to keep it. This wasn't traditional filmmaking. It was like watching controlled chaos, and somehow it all worked out. The blooper reel that started a trend. When most movies end, the credits roll and the screen goes black. But the Cannonball run kept going with a full blooper reel that showed all the missed lines, failed stunts, and moments when actors couldn't stop laughing during their scenes. It was honest, it was funny, and it became legendary. Jackie Chan was so inspired by this idea that he decided to make blooper reels a permanent part of all his own movies. Starting with a film called Dragon Lord in 1982, he began including all the failed takes, the painful falls, and the moments when he and his stunt team were cracking up between action sequences. He continued this tradition for decades, and it became one of his signature touches. All of this started with the Cannonball run, showing that sometimes the mistakes and failures are just as entertaining as the finished product. Those real moments of human imperfection and laughter became part of the experience and made audiences feel like they were getting a peek behind the curtain of movie making. The illegal jet landing. Remember that scene where a jet lands on a regular road, flying low and loud and looking incredibly dangerous? Well, it looked dangerous because it actually was dangerous. That wasn't a movie set with fake backgrounds and special effects. It was a real Learjet flying illegally without any filming permits from the Federal Aviation Administration. They pulled off the entire stunt in just one take, barely managing to make it work. And when federal officials found out about it later, they were not happy at all. This wasn't treated like a movie stunt. It was treated like a crime. The production team was investigated, warnings were issued, and Hal Needham reportedly had to beg and make deals to avoid being arrested. In a movie that was full of fake costumes and pretend characters, that airplane was 100% real, and so was the fear that someone might end up in handcuffs. It perfectly captured the spirit of the movie, taking real risks to create something that had never been done before. Jackie Chan's cultural frustration. Jackie Chan was proud to make his American movie debut in the Cannonball run, but there was one big problem that really bothered him. Even though he's Chinese, the movie listed him as Japanese in the credits and treated his character like he was a Japanese ninja with high-tech gadgets and martial arts skills. To Jackie, this difference mattered deeply. Being labeled incorrectly wasn't just lazy filmmaking. It was disrespectful to his cultural identity. He played the role with incredible energy and precision, did all of his own dangerous stunts, and delivered perfect comic timing without saying very much dialogue. But behind the scenes, he was frustrated and determined to eventually do things his way. This experience taught him that Hollywood didn't quite understand who he was or where he came from, but it also motivated him to work even harder to show them what he was really capable of. That determination would eventually pay off in a big way, but for now, Jackie Chan was just getting started on his journey to become a global superstar. The police chase that became real. It wasn't just the airplane that attracted unwanted attention from law enforcement. During a scene in downtown Las Vegas, the crew was filming a wild chase sequence complete with car crashes, sirens, and fake weapons. They had cameras positioned everywhere, stunt drivers ready to go, and everything timed down to the second. The only thing they didn't have was permission to film there. Real police officers saw the scene happening, had no idea it was for a movie, and thought they were witnessing an actual crime in progress. For several tense minutes, the Cannonball run turned into a real police pursuit with actors freezing in place, crew members running away, and someone desperately yelling, "Cut!" even though the cameras had stopped rolling. After a very awkward conversation and a lot of explaining, the police let everyone go without making any arrests. But they gave the production team a stern warning to never try something like that again. Hal Needham just smiled, promised to be more careful, and then kept filming anyway. Dom DeLuise's uncontrollable laughter. Every comedy has funny moments that don't make it into the final movie. But Dom DeLuise didn't wait for the outtakes to start cracking up. Playing the character Captain Chaos, he was supposed to be Burt Reynolds' loyal sidekick, but he ended up stealing every scene by completely falling apart with laughter during filming. He would break character right in the middle of delivering his lines, gasp for air, and collapse into uncontrollable giggles, while Burt Reynolds just rolled his eyes and waited for him to get it together. Hal Needham eventually gave up trying to get serious takes and decided to keep the shots where Dom was laughing, because they were funnier than anything in the script. You can actually see this happening in the finished movie. He's not acting, he's just a man who can't believe what he's getting away with, and that pure, unscripted joy became one of the most heartfelt parts of the entire film. Sometimes the best comedy happens when someone is just genuinely having the time of their life. The video game that captured the spirit. For some fans, the Cannonball Run was more than just a movie. It was a feeling that they wanted to experience over and over again. In 1986, a Japanese dual game designer named Yu Suzuki watched the film and saw something that inspired him to create one of the most beloved video games of all time. He didn't just see cars racing. He saw freedom, adventure, and that incredible feeling of outrunning everything that was chasing you. So he created Outrun, a game that felt more like a beautiful dream than a competitive race. You weren't trying to beat other drivers or win trophies. You were just trying to escape into an endless horizon. In Outrun, you drive a red Ferrari with a beautiful passenger beside you, racing down highways that stretch forever into the sunset. There are no enemies, no laps to complete. Just pure speed and the feeling of being completely free. If you ever played it with your hands on the plastic steering wheel and the music blasting, you know that magical feeling of just driving towards something beautiful and unknown. All of this started with a comedy that never stopped moving and never stopped believing that the journey was more important than the destination. The stunt double, who fooled everyone. There's a brief scene in the middle of the movie where a police officer pulls over a speeding Lamborghini. It seems like just another random moment until you look closely and realize that the cop looks exactly like Burt Reynolds. There's a good reason for this. It's not Burt, but it's not exactly not Burt either. The officer is actually Roy Tatum, who was Burt Reynolds' longtime stunt double and looked so much like him that even people working on the movie got confused about which one was which. Tatum was originally just visiting the set to hang out with his friend when someone had the brilliant idea to put him in the movie as well. He put on the police uniform and ended up in one of the film's most fun hidden jokes. During a break in filming, one of the producers walked up to Tatum thinking he was Burt and spent several minutes explaining what was going to happen in the next scene. Tatum just nodded, smiled, and let him keep talking without correcting the mistake. In a movie full of costume changes and fake identities, this mix-up happened completely by accident and became part of the fun. The director's personal Ferrari. Most movie directors are very protective of their expensive equipment and vehicles. But Hal Needham threw his own personal car right into the middle of the action. The sleek red Ferrari 308 GTS that Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. drive in the movie wasn't just a rental or a movie prop. It was Hal's own beloved sports car that he had tuned and cared for personally. He handed over the keys to the actors without any hesitation, no special insurance, and no backup car waiting just in case something went wrong. His only instruction was simple: just don't wreck it. They almost did. Tires burned, doors got scraped, and one scene came dangerously close to sending the Ferrari into a guardrail. But Hal never asked them to slow down or be more careful, because the Cannonball Run wasn't about faking the excitement. It was about living it for real. In a production where even the props had genuine stories behind them, nothing felt more honest than a director betting his own prized possession on the chaos he was creating. The sequel that started before the first movie ended. Most movies wait to see how audiences react before anyone starts thinking about making a sequel. The Cannonball Run was different. During filming, producers were watching the daily footage and laughing harder than the crew members. Word spread that test audiences were loving what they saw, and one executive reportedly said, "This is going to be a huge hit, and we're not even finished making it yet." So before Hal Needham even called wrap on the first movie, they had already given approval for the Cannonball Run 2. Scripts weren't finished, scenes weren't edited, and nobody knew for sure how the first movie would turn out. It didn't matter. The studio saw stars, stunts, and dollar signs, and they wanted more immediately. The Cannonball Run wasn't just a race across America. It had become a race to make as much money as possible, and nobody cared if the engine was still running smoothly as long as the cash was rolling in. The forgotten third movie. Just when you think the story of Cannonball madness had reached its peak, there's one more twist that most fans don't even know about. In 1989, a movie quietly appeared in theaters with titles like Speed Zone, Cannonball Fever, or Cannonball Run 3, depending on which country you were watching it in. This forgotten sequel had no Burt Reynolds, no Dom DeLuise, and barely any connection to the original movies except for Jamie Farr reprising his role as the scheming character driving a limousine through a race that nobody had asked to see. The cast included John Candy, Eugene Levy, and Brooke Shields, but the tone was completely different, and the magic that had made the original special was nowhere to be found. It bombed so badly at the box office that most Cannonball Run fans still don't know it exists. If the original Cannonball Run proved that you could make a successful movie by breaking all the rules and having fun with chaos, Speed Zone proved what happens when you try to recreate that magic without understanding what made it work in the first place. The Cannonball Run succeeded because it was genuinely reckless, ridiculous, and completely off course from normal filmmaking. That's exactly why it crossed the finish line as a cult classic that people are still talking about more than 40 years later. The legacy of pure chaos. So there you have it. 20 incredible facts about a movie that was never supposed to work, but somehow became legendary. The Cannonball Run wasn't just a racing comedy. It was a perfect storm of crazy circumstances, talented people having fun, and the kind of anything-goes attitude that you rarely see in Hollywood. From real illegal street races to drunk actors improvising their lines, from federal investigations to life-changing accidents, this movie had everything. It proved that sometimes the best entertainment comes from throwing away the rulebook and just seeing what happens when you let creative people be completely free. The magic of the Cannonball Run was that it captured lightning in a bottle. It was made at exactly the right time, with exactly the right people, under exactly the right circumstances to create something that could never be duplicated. Every attempt to recapture that magic has failed, because you can't fake the genuine chaos and friendship that made the original so special. If this wild ride through Hollywood history has entertained you, then do me a huge favor. Smash that like button to let me know you enjoyed learning these incredible behind-the-scenes secrets. Share this video with any movie lovers in your life who need to hear these amazing stories. And definitely hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because I've got tons more incredible Hollywood secrets and forgotten stories coming your way. Trust me, if you loved learning about the chaos behind the Cannonball Run, you're going to absolutely love what I've got planned next. There are so many more legendary movies with unbelievable stories that will blow your mind, so subscribe now, and let's keep exploring the incredible true stories behind the movies we love. Thanks for watching. And remember, in the world of Cannonball, there's no map to follow, just the gas pedal and the open road ahead.